There we go. So the craft sticks, you are going to create an angle on your craft stick in order to do the process that we're going to do on your tile today. Where you want that angle or that point to be will kind of depend on you to some degree. I personally like this particular shape best, and I get the best angle from it. And when I cut this one, I cut it first of all straight across, just on an angle. So you could cut just the round tip off the top of your piece. And then I went back and just cut a smaller kind of angle. And my poor craft stick's been getting used and cut down, so it's getting really short. I want to keep in mind that when we go on to do our coil project and you guys are making your mugs, you're going to need the rounded end of a tool, and you'll probably want it relatively long. So if you do end up kind of experimenting, just keep the backside of the tool in good shape for our next project, okay? So that's one of the things that you'll need. You don't have to cut them all up. You can experiment with just one if you want, and but there are different sort of variations on that trim. And then I've got my tile that I started with you guys yesterday. Keep things bagged when you're not using them, when you're not working on them, so they don't dry out. Where did my, there. Okay, so yesterday we started out with cleaning the edges of the tile. So getting your small sponge, squeezing out all of the water, and then just cleaning up these outer edges just a little bit, not wiping across the surface of the tile. So that sponge then goes away, and also wiping down any of these edges. Also remembering the back side of the tile. You can see mine has funk that's starting to grow on it. That's normal. This side has a canvas texture. I do not want to use that side this time around. I want to use the smooth side. So smooth side, my design is drawn out, figured out, and outlined so that it's nice and strong. And then you're going to position that piece of paper so that the edges match up with the edges of your tile. So it's not sitting sideways or crazy, and it's all right on top of that clay. And then you're going to take your time, either with a wooden, regular old-fashioned pencil where the lead is slightly rounded and you're tracing, or you can use your bamboo skewer, pointy end, not the flat end. Or even better, kind of, is an old, terrible, you could see it's a completely dead old ballpoint pen that doesn't write so well anymore. It has that nice rounded tip, and so when I'm pressing down on it, I'm going to make a nice mark on the underside. So as you start tracing, make sure that you're paying attention to adding enough pressure that if I hold this piece of paper down, if I pull this back, I'm going to be able to see, not quite as strong as that, so this side, I'm going to be able to see a light impression that's being made in the design. But again, I don't want to be lifting this paper or adjusting it in any way once I start. So get it squared up on your tile and then begin, hold it steady with one hand and go for it and do your whole outline so that your design transfers onto the tile. And then the next step is to basically trace it one more time. I'm going to keep my design and drawing nearby, because what I even found last period is like I missed a line because I was tracing over it and I couldn't really tell what was a first line and a second line and a third line. Sometimes you might miss it, so I want to keep this nearby so that I'm like, oops, I missed a spot, and I can retrace. Okay? So I'm just going to spend a little bit of time. If I use the ballpoint pen to even do this portion, because again, this is a dead pen. I'm not going to be trying to use this again on paper.
Don't you know, pump it up. You got to pump it up. Don't you know, pump it up. You got to pump it up. Don't you know, pump it up. You got to
where I'm layering kind of what's in front of something else in front of something else in front of something else. In this case, on my design, I kind of had 4 layers. So when I'm looking at my drawing, I know my big dog is in front. He's number 1. And then even though there's only a slight overlap with my second dog here, this dog is definitely in front of this dog. So he is number 2 layer, and this dog is number 3 layer. And then my lettering is behind all of them, so that's my number 4 layer. So you might want to sort of map it out, especially if you have a slightly more complicated design where you have lots of layers. Then it's good to think about what's in the front, what's in the middle, and what's in the background, okay? This is gonna become important as I move along. So again, I keep my map, my design kind of nearby. And what I'm gonna do is my dog, in my case, the dog is in front. So whatever is in front of things behind, the most in front, I'm going to basically outline him, but I'm outlining him by scraping away an angle. So I've turned the piece over so I can pull the tool towards me. And I'm gonna dig this corner in at the line and take away like a 45-degree angle or slightly flatter angle than that. Scrape away some of the clay so that there's an angle that goes from the background or what's behind him towards that line. And in reality, what I just did is I removed the line, and now I have the edge of a shape. Hopefully that makes a little bit of sense. I'm gonna do that all the way around him, just using the tool with the kind of point on it to carve away an angle that's angling towards that line. It's pretty shallow, really. In his ear, it gets a little bit messy right here. But up into his ear and around. And I'm just carving away that edge, or creating that edge around that first layer, okay? So I've gone all the way around. Brush that out a little bit. And hopefully you can see that that creates an angle that goes in towards that line. Can you see that on camera a little bit? Okay, so I've only done part of him. Now this dog is behind him. So I'm gonna continue doing the same thing, even though it's on another one of my objects. I don't wanna lose his ear. So sometimes when you're doing this, you lose a little bit of the information that you've carved in. So that's why I keep my bamboo skewer nearby so that I don't end up removing something that's information. But I'm gonna keep on scraping away. So I have this line right here where the neck of the dog is behind this guy. So as I scrape through, that line gets erased for a moment. So that's why I keep the skewer around, because I'm gonna draw that right back in so I don't lose when I get to this dog where that edge is. But I'm gonna keep on doing this sort of angle. So I'm just scooping away more clay right here on this edge and less clay as it moves across. So that's why it's important to have this guy trimmed in a way that you can control how much clay you're scraping away. It's not lots, it's very little clay. And again, as I outlined his ear, I lost a little bit of that information. So before I get too much further, I'm just gonna continue that line again. Going all the way around him. So instead of creating an outline, I'm actually creating a shape, or actually a bit of a form. Still pretty flat, but a little bit of a raised edge in a way. All that stuff off of there. is in front of everything else, including my letters. So just putting those lines back in. So you want to go slowly with this so that the tool doesn't sort of jump across the clay. If you're rushing, you might end up mistakenly taking a little chunk out that you don't mean to. Yeah, you're going to start with whatever object is in the front of your design. In the case of mine, it's one of my dogs of the 3 that I'm overlapping. Yeah, you're going to follow the line. So this part of my tool is going right against that line. And then as I drag, I'm applying just enough pressure so I'm just taking a little bit of clay out. Let me see. Well, that's his body. Here we go. Okay, so far I've kind of outlined my big dog again, but this time creating this angle. So, I don't know if you can hold it looking on the towel. There you go. Maybe that direction. You can kind of see it looks like a little glow or a little shadow that goes around him. And in reality, that's an angle. So if I have my tool here, you can see the tip of my skewer is down in that little groove that I've created. And I've eliminated the actual line, so I don't have an outline around him anymore. Now the outline that you see is your eye telling you where that edge is. Okay, does that make sense? Kind of, sort of? All right, Nina gets it. I think Eric gets it. Anybody else? And if it's confusing, you just gotta let me know. It would totally be normal for this to be confusing. Even in class, in life. Yep, I'm gonna keep going and do this whole tile over time. So I've started with my guy in front because basically, as you create this angle around an object, what I'm doing is I'm putting everything else sort of behind him. So he's now in front of this dog and in front of this dog's tail and slightly in front of the letters that have come down. So he now pops forward just a little bit, okay? And it's not super significant yet. It'll start to show up more as we keep on going. And I'm not removing a ton of clay. Again, this is a really thin tile, so I'm not digging way in there and really trying to do it. In reality, my tile is still flat. So if I hold this up sideways and hold it here, you don't see big, like dug out spaces. You just see this little bit of an angle that's gone around the whole object. So when I run my finger across, I can feel that there's a little gap there. Okay? So my second dog is this guy. So I'm gonna do the same thing going around my second object. So this one is sort of in the middle ground. So again, angling the tool and just going around the outline to start with. This is the kind of first level of relief curving, is just going around the outline of each of the objects so that I'm showing where it is in space. And then I'll show you what the next sort of layer of information can be. So again, I'm gonna go across all of this information. Those are the dog's legs that are in the very background. So as I create the groove here, I've lost a little bit of information, so I'm gonna just get those lines right back in there. What I don't wanna see, and what often happens with these kind of projects, is kind of a halo effect, where people don't want to disturb lines, and so they just avoid them completely. And in this, you don't want to avoid the lines. You just want to go all the way around your object. It doesn't matter if it's an icon, a design, your clouds that don't really have a hard outline. all of those things in reality. You're just getting the basic information. Where what is in front of what else. So I'm gonna go all the way around. And he's got a teeny tiny little ear. I gotta be careful because I don't wanna remove his ear by accident. I will also say, this is again, you guys being at home and having a tile to work on, accidents do happen. It's your first time ever doing this. It is very likely you will make a mistake somewhere along the way. You will mean for something to be in front of something else, but then you'll carve it and whoops, you carved it in reverse, so it'll be behind something else. It is not the end of the world. Okay, in the end, when you get color on it, it makes everything better. So don't be super fearful of just kind of going after it and giving it a try. So his outline is pretty much there except for this interior. This is actually his back leg, and these are the legs of the dog behind him. So I've got to get in this space as well. And go around his full outline. And then again, because I just carved that clay away, then I've lost a little bit of that design. And again, I can go back to my drawing and go, oh, his leg is right here, and this line continues here. So you don't lose things as you're sort of carving away the layers. Okay, so hopefully you can see that. Again, get all those little bits and pieces out of the way as much as possible. So right now they kind of look like they have a shadow or a halo around them. That is really an angled cut. So again, I have an actual edge here now, not an outline. So all the line goes away. I have a line here, but where it continues down here, that line is now gone, and instead I have an edge. So hopefully that makes sense. And then I've got my third dog in the back, so I'm gonna go around him now. All this stuff is getting bunched up on me. There we go. So that's why you don't have to spend too much time like cleaning up all your lines either, because all of these little goobery things where the clay stuck as I was drawing the outline, I'm really just scraping it away here. So no need to do a super cleanup job, because it will end up cleaning itself up along the way. Again, I've lost just the edges of my letters there, so I'm gonna redraw them in as I go so I don't confuse myself later on. It is kind of important to do that as you go because of that very reason. You think you'll know where everything belongs later on, but it gets a little complicated. So it's just easier to do it then and there. And then his legs are down in here, so it's a little, looks a little abstract, but so just like you can see, because these legs are behind this dog, I'm not going through this leg, I'm not going through the areas that have already been carved. Okay. So all three dogs have been outlined, and all of them have kind of an edge to them now instead of an outline. And then I'm gonna do the same thing. The next step is my letters, because remember that was kind of my fourth layer. So I gotta go around all of my letters and give them an edge also. So the clay that I'm scraping off, if I could show it to you, it's almost like a little triangle shape where there's a side that I'm scraping away from the edge and then a narrower piece that's coming off that blends into the background. So kind of making a little bit of an angled trench all the way around. So all the lettering is going to also pop away from the background and stand up a little bit. Again, you could be moving a lot slower than I am when you're actually doing your carving. Since I have done this a couple of times before. Trying to move fast enough that you can get the information you need. Okay. So at this point, everything's been outlined. So I've got my big dog in front of the items that are behind it. This dog's in front of this dog because I've carved around the outside of it. So hopefully that kind of makes sense and you can see that it really strengthens the design and makes it pop out a little bit. While at the same time, my tile is still flat. I don't have any big holes and I'm not gonna go in and like carve away all the clay around an object. You don't want to remove a whole layer of clay. You only want to remove an angle, okay, to reveal that little edge. So all the lines are gone from the outside of all of the shapes and the letters. There's no more drawn on lines. Now there's the edge of a shape. The only lines that are drawn on are now on the surface of the animal, like details in this case. And even then, if I want his head to kind of pop forward, this is the next sort of layer. So what I've done just now is what I want everyone to be doing, is to create the outline and the shape of all of the objects that you have on your piece. The second layer of doing this, and I can see when I look at my dog, I have this line of where his jaw goes all the way back and I missed that on here. So I'm gonna draw it in and bring that up. So this is the second layer, looking at him and like this leg is in front of the body. So it's a little pushed out from the side. His head is in front of his neck and shoulders. So if I want to make him more interesting and I want to make his shape sort of stand out a little bit more, I can do the same thing of creating this beveled edge inside the object. So just taking away that little bit on the side of his face. And again, I'm gonna draw that line back in because that's gonna show me where to put things when I do my glaze. He has a white chest and a black coat. But now his face is a little bit in front of his body and his neck. And in the same way here, this leg is in front of the body, so that means I have to get on the other side. If I carved this way, it would make his leg look like it's underneath his body or underneath his torso. So if I want something to pop forward, I'm gonna go around the outside of it. And that's the trick, is remembering that you're going around the outside of objects, because if you want them to pop forward, you want that surface to be the higher surface. Same way his ear is sitting on top of the side of his face. So I can go around the outside of that ear and just add that little bit of an angle. And then his ear will pop forward just a bit. So it gives just a little bit more information. That little bit of clay stuck in there. Okay, so how are we doing for understanding what I've been showing you? Is it making sense? You can give me a thumbs up or I don't know if there's a thumbs down. Make sense for some? It's gonna take a little practice. Quite honestly, you're gonna get started and be like, what? What was I doing? What was she doing? Where do I carve? What's going on? So think about it. Even on your drawing, you could go in and go, okay, this is the background behind him. So I go and make my little dash lines. So I know that this is all background. And he's even in front of this dog. I'm gonna give him a little Jesus glow here. He's a saint. And then I can tell that's where my angle is gonna be as I go all the way around him, and then this dog will also have his. So again, if you get a little lost, don't panic. If you make a mistake and carve on the wrong side of a line, don't panic. It is your first time ever doing this. It will look beautiful once it's all covered in color, even mistakes. But again, if you are confused, you gotta just speak up and let me know so I can try to show it to you a different way if at all possible. But it looks like some of you have got an idea of what I'm doing. So get your designs on your tile. Again, I'm gonna go back through. If you haven't posted up your design, please do that so I can give you a thumbs up or a looks good. And then you can transfer that onto your tile, get it transferred in, outlined at least. See if you can start this overnight so that tomorrow, if you have questions and confusion, you know that coming in and we can troubleshoot. Because if you start this over the weekend and you don't do any of this till then when it's due on Monday, you're gonna be a little squished and a little feeling stressed. So give it a try tonight, at least a couple of lines to see if it makes sense. And then tomorrow I'm gonna show you how to clean this up further and create textures in your background and details on your objects so that they are stronger and a little bit better, okay? Thank you guys. Have a great Thursday. See you tomorrow. All right, you too.